welcome to the Joanne Avison podcast. This episode, we're going to look at a hidden source of your stress. Because I often meet people, have clients that think it's in their head. They say to me, is it all in my head? And I want you to know that it just might not be. You know that tight feeling that you might get in your jaw that just won't unclench, or the knot in your shoulders that feels like it's kind of taken up permanent residence, or that subtle hum of anxiety that seems to follow you around. Even on a good day, it's like in the background of the background. Don't get too calm, don't get too happy, because what if? And you've tried to fix it. You meditate, maybe, you do yoga, or you go on holiday, and it seems to resolve it, but there's this temporary thing about it. And you try to think your way out of the stress, but the feeling is still there, and you just can't figure out how to shake off this holding. And fill in the gap if there's a slightly different feeling to it. But if you resonate with this feeling, it's one of trying to figure out how to shake it off. And what if it isn't just in your head? What if it's a very real message from your body? What if that nagging anxiety isn't just a feeling, but in fact something physically tangled up in that massive, powerful sensory network that most people probably haven't even heard of? You know me, you know why you're here, and it's time to meet your fascia and understand how this tissue has remained hidden in the obvious for centuries, but it just might have an extremely powerful part to play in how we hold stress. And even old stresses that you thought you'd let go of years ago. You might even have had therapy, talk therapy, or some kind of psychotherapeutic work that doesn't seem to have gone the full way to relieving it, because this interface of our tissue that organizes all aspects of us, physical, emotional, mental, imaginal, subconscious, unconscious, soulic. That interface is holding something. And maybe it could work the other way round. What if we don't necessarily have to organize the understanding to get the body to change? Maybe we can change the body to reorganize what seems to be the understanding. Maybe it's not an intellectual process. Maybe it's a physical, instinctive one, or at least they interface, and that interface is more powerful than we realize. So let's use one of my clients. It's a friend of mine who became a client, and we're going to give them a false name to protect them, and we're going to call them Alex. Now, on the outside, Alex was the picture of health, the picture of success, a high achiever, climbing the career ladder, juggling a busy but active and happy social life, and always someone that was ambitious and pushing for the next goal. But on the inside, there were days when, honestly, Alex was running on fumes. It started small. There was a little more coffee to get going in the morning, a little less patience by the afternoon, and before long, whatever was going on spiraled into full-blown burnout. The symptoms were pretty classic, but it was confusing because there was some brain fog, but not all the time, a kind of exhaustion that sleep somehow couldn't touch, and sleep wasn't that consistent. And there was this buzzing irritability, is what they called it. I'm used to be buzzing with excitement, and now I'm buzzing with irritability. And Alex, honestly, tried everything the modern world tells you to do for a stressed out mind. You know what I mean? The mindfulness apps, the listening to quiet music before going to sleep, the black sound thing that you can do all night. They all just became more frustrating things on the to-do list. The therapy sessions helped, but they gave a sort of intellectual why without the deep feeling of relief that I'm talking about. But the most stubborn symptom wasn't in their head. It was a deep, unshakable, physical buzzing, a kind of I can relax to this point and then it starts to buzz. And it was really getting quite a grip on Alex. And neck and shoulders always stiff. Lower backache fluctuated. And one of the keys was that the jaw was so sore every morning, waking up with that clenching from the night. And they felt like their body was bracing for an impact that never came. They described to me stress wasn't like a thought. It was as if something had literally moved into the body and was refusing to pay rent. That was the joke that Alex made of it. And it felt like Alex was imprisoned and, frankly, becoming disconnected from the attempts to just keep calm. But here's the thing. The problem wasn't just in their head. It actually was everywhere else. And the big aha moment came when Alex discovered, I call it the hidden instrument, the frustration and the feeling of being totally out of sync with their own body. Alex stumbled onto something that changed everything. And it wasn't from a self-help book or a productivity podcast. It came from a discussion that we were having about anatomy. The idea was simple. All that was said was stress isn't some abstract thing in your brain that comes in through certain words or hangs around an old trauma. It's actually a physical event that you experienced that gets recorded, like every physical event that you experience, in your body's tissues. And Alex was intrigued. What do you mean? And I explained how the fascial matrix is a liquid crystal matrix. And specifically, the fascia is something that can hold crystallizations, that it tries to flow around. And over time, they form like crystal blockages in the flow of information highways. And they are as myriad and as detailed as any information highways through the internet coming through to your computer. They're internal, the internal net, this subtle network that gets like glitches and it needs reboots. So I explained how fascia, for a long, long time, was the stuff that anatomists cut away to get to the important parts, like the organs or the muscles or the bones. And how the science is showing us now that fascia is one of the most vital and fascinating systems in our entire body. And some people describe it as wrapping around muscles, others describe it as scaffolding. I don't love either of those explanations because it's much more than a wrapping around things. It actually organizes from the fibrils to the fibers to the whole muscles to the organization around them. And the word scaffolding gives us this sense of crisscrossed, right-angled architectural scaffolding that we might find in a building. And in fact, in the body, everything is more like a crisscross mesh. It's called decussated. Deca comes from 10, which is the Roman sign for a 10 is a cross. So it's actually a crisscross weave throughout the entire body. And it wraps around and runs through and connects every single part of you. And it also organizes the in-between of what's not a part, but that is related to another part, because all of our parts have to talk to each other. They have to communicate with each other. Obviously, they don't speak our mother tongue, but they do have signals, sound signals, light signals. It's absolutely extraordinary. And it is a continuous network. It encases every muscle, forms every organ, every nerve, every bone, every bit of us. And we've studied the bits, but what we're only newly understanding is the continuity of this surrounding soft tissue architecture. It's not a bunch of separate sheets or separate threads. It's one whole kind of single interconnected web, and it literally holds you together. Honestly, if you could magically remove everything except the fascia, you'd be left with a perfect, shimmering, multi-dimensional ghost form of yourself. And now, after the last, I would say, 5 decades of really ramping up the research on how this works and interfaces, it gets really, really interesting, because this web isn't just some kind of structural architecture like a sort of scaffolding. It's not accurate. It's actually the form in which everything in us forms and from which everything in us is formed. So that soft tissue architecture is literally everywhere. It is the most ubiquitous, meaning the most everywhere tissue of the human body. It's also a powerful and intelligent filter and a powerful and intelligent sensory organ. In fact, the latest research suggests that the fluid fascial network is our most sensitive organ, and it's packed with, I like to think of them as sensory antennae. They're called mechanoreceptors because they communicate mechanical forces. Now, I don't like the word mechanical as a metaphor for the human body, because for me it's bioemotional rather than biomechanical. But they're called mechanoreceptors, and they detect motion. They're constantly feeding information to the body about where we are in space proprioceptively. Proprio means one's own, and septively means perception. So it actually means one's own self-perception. And that isn't just sending messages to our brain via our nervous system about where our body is in space and what it's feeling. It's actually a massive communication highway that has the intelligence to self-sense, and it does it much more rapidly than our nervous system can compute. So we're not just a nervous system with a brain that every message has to come into the brain and be told what to do, and the brain has to send it out. It works much faster than that. It's a far more complex system. And we're beginning to understand its depth and its complexity and its detail. And it's what's called precognitive awareness. So before we even know, something in us knows. It's beautiful. I'm going to explore it more in other podcasts. But what I really want to emphasize here is that as far as Alex was concerned, it was a complete aha moment, because Alex turned to me and just said, what if that burnout isn't just a state of mind? Could we call it a proprioceptive state in my fascia? And I just smiled, as I do, because I meet a lot of people who don't know about fascia. And when they find out that it relates to the high pressure of living and pushing through exhaustion, God knows I found that out the hard way. Alex realised it played a powerful role in this internal web to literally tighten and lock down certain areas that just hadn't had time to find their way back to balance. And what basically happens is this stress gets kind of woven into the weave. You could think of it in some ways it's not the only way, but in some ways, like an exquisitely fine knitted sweater. It's actually more like several, one on top of the other with different qualities and different thicknesses. But never mind that. Let's just imagine this sweater. Think about the weave. And when it's healthy, it's soft, it moves, it's kind of fluid, and it can change shape, and it's hydrated, and it lets everything around it glide smoothly. It communicates with ease. It changes shape with ease. But when your body senses a threat, whether it's a real physical danger or an emotional conflict or just another impossible deadline that you're driving yourself towards, and your nervous system is like increasing anxiety and perhaps even entering into a fight or flight mode, so you waking up the sympathetic nervous system, it floods your body with certain stress hormones. And what that does is put you into a physical state where the musculature is already, or the myofascia of you is already to flee or to freeze, or there's all sorts of aspects of that. But the point is that they change. And what is that nervous system made of? And what is that myofascial continuity made of? And what is wrapped around all these muscles and running through every single fiber of them? And what organizes the in-between as they change shape with each other is the fascia. So when that stress becomes chronic, like it is for so many of us in our current lifestyle, particularly in this culture of fast track everything, the fascia starts to change shape to manage it. It can lose its moisture, it can stiffen, it can become sticky and dehydrated, but it also loses its springiness and its ability to soften. Just imagine that you'd washed your favorite jumper, silk or cashmere or something, and you've put it in the washing machine on much too high a wash, and it's come out all matted and it's kind of mashed, and it's got no natural spring or folding in the fibre anymore. It's gone all sort of stiff. There's no flow to the fabric. And that once soft sweater that accommodated and adapted when you pulled up your sleeves or did up the cardigan or whatever it is, forgive me pushing the metaphor so hard, but it now has snags and knots in it, and it's kind of matted and stuck. And because fascia is one big connected web in the round throughout all of us, if it no longer fits the way that it could, like think of a baby in a baby grow that just isn't big enough for it anymore, if it won't go round your shoulder from hunching over a computer for hours and hours or training in that position for a long time, it can create distortions. And those distortions pull into your lower back or into your neck. It's not just pain referral, as has been thought. It's actually a messaging system that's struggling to pass its message, its impulses through the communication highways. And here's where it gets really mind-blowing. There is research now, and I've had the privilege of working with some of these researchers, like Dr. Robert Schleip, for example, exploring the idea that fascia might act as a physical record of our emotional history. Where else is it going to go? As we change over time, we can see the signs. And when you learn to read them and feel them as a therapist, massive information is available to you. And I'm not saying that the fascia stores memories in the way that your brain tries to articulate them, but it does store memory of occasions and chronic postural patterns from old stresses or traumas. Like, for example, if something got broken or there was a surgical intervention, or you cramped down in fear against something, there will be some form of scarring in the physical tissue or shape changing that can get stuck. And that can be changed. Because it's as if your body's sort of physically holding on to unresolved baggage. It crystallizes in the tissue. And as a liquid crystal matrix, the question we're asking is it possible that some emotional events or sticking points in our history literally crystallize. And if we can't dissolve and resolve them back into suitable organization, does that mean they stay there and we work around them until we put ourselves under so much pressure that we're not kind of free to do that? And is it possible that they are like unfelt feelings that we can feel our way back to? Because what we also know is that the fascial network is deeply connected to our autonomic nervous system. That's the system that runs our stress response. And this is linked with the vagus nerve and our rest and digest calming system, and it weaves through all the fascial tissues all over the body. But while this fascinating research is unfolding, some experts believe that when the fascia gets too restricted, it literally interferes with the signals being sent through the autonomic nervous system. It can keep the body thinking that it's stuck in high alert. It's like in a stressed out state because it's not moving fully. So you might feel ready to relax and chill, but your body is holding this pattern in readiness. And so it's still sending and receiving signals that might stop you moving well. Yet, ironically, if you don't move, you can't release them. It's a tricky thing. And the path to relief is a whole new kind of healing. New in the sense that it's becoming known fairly newly, but not new in the sense that many of us have been working with this for 30 to 50 years and studying it, and the research is now coming through at a new level because of the different equipment available to view changes in the fascia matrix. But to go back to Alex, it gave Alex a whole new understanding. Instead of trying to think their way through, they started to work with their body to release these, what I call crystallized places where the energy was stuck inside. And it wasn't about pushing harder. It wasn't about driving to do more in the day. It was about listening more closely. It was about working with their own body's bioemotional intelligence. It meant tuning in. So first, Alex discovered subtle micro movements. And using really simple tools like a squash ball, they started applying gentle but sustained pressure to those tight, tender spots under their feet. That's all, just sat at the desk, working at the computer, doing what Alex does every day. But instead of wearing shoes under the desk, a ball under the feet, under the desk. It wasn't about painfully grinding into a hard ball to force knots out. It was a patient conversation, a conversation of a patient, patiently with themselves. You just find a point of discomfort and you rest your weight on it. And you breathe. And you wait for the tissue to finally soften and let go and talk back. And it can be quite an amusing conversation. And what Alex felt was profound. There was one occasion while Alex was working on a particularly stubborn knot in the heel. They suddenly remembered a childhood event where they hurt themselves. And a wave of sadness that they just couldn't explain, almost tearful, was followed by an incredible feeling of lightness. Now, Alex is not the only one. Many people report these kinds of spontaneous emotional releases during subtle body work. And it's as if letting go of that physical crystallized knot allows the old emotional energy to finally move. It's almost like it seems to dissolve so that it can be moved on. And I often think the tears are a great thing because it's like it's washing that dissolution out of the body. The other thing Alex did was change how they moved. They ditched the high intensity workouts 3 times a week that were actually just creating more stress to timetable in. And instead, it was about introducing subtle micro movements designed to hydrate and mobilize that fascial web. Just a few minutes at a time, but throughout the day. And not just the feet, working with a ball in the chair behind their back, working with the hands, just tiny micro moments. And they also played with more intuitive movements, like yawning, for example, with the whole body, and gently shaking and rocking to shake things off. Subtle things that might seem silly, but actually they're the sort of things you see animals do. And there's a good reason for that, because they just shake them out. And when they felt anxious, Alex discovered these natural ways of discharging stress by focusing on subtle and simple breath work. They learned deep belly breathing, done in a certain way at certain times, and it is one of the fastest ways to calm the body. Very simple, pausing, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, equal timing, and learning how to deepen that without collapsing and without compromising, and just learning to do it in between things and remembering. And after a while, it's almost as if Alex found the body saying, "Can we do that breathing thing again?" And it became an accumulated ability to relax more. Think about fascia as the tissue of space-time in the body. It's the tissue of temporality. It tells the time in the body. It handles time in that it accumulates all that we've done. It's present to what we're doing, and it can preempt, anticipate. It's an amazing tissue. But when Alex took the time, even if it was just a couple of minutes and the space, to take those 5 to 10 long, easy breaths, just slowing down a tiny bit in the in-betweens, it gave a message of safety throughout the body, encouraging the fascia to spread the word. I call it turning Alex into a fascia whisperer, and that's what I mean by that. And all the practitioners that I get to work with around the world, I say to them, we're learning fascia whispering. Because by pairing the breathing with noticing these subtle bodily sensations, but without judgment, just being curious, Alex started to rebuild a sort of quiet, simpler, healthy relationship with the body. Alex learned to spot the very first signs of anxiety, like a tiny clench in the jaw. And instead of feeling, oh no, here we go again, Alex could pause and respond with a conscious breath and a gentle yawning stretch and become curious instead of anxious. And they started to find out that it dissipated before it turned into a chronic knot. Now, it didn't all just go by magic overnight. Alex recognised the need to seek out professionally trained guidance to work with Alex's tissues and reorganise the postural set and the hydration and really change Alex's ability to move well. It's subtle, but in deep myofascial integration, a skilled therapist can read the body and sense where the fascial web might be disorganised or stuck. They'll find areas that we can't find on our own. Even if we know they're there, we can't get to them, and we can't use our own bodies to release the area. Sometimes you just need another pair of hands. And sometimes you come across patterns that have been there for decades, and it takes time. It takes time to, it's not accumulated in 5 minutes. So it can take several sessions to relieve. but it's worth it, especially with the combination of subtle movement as well as the manual intervention. Because then what you get is the ability, the joy of living in an integrated body. And the results for Alex were literally life-changing. As the weeks and months passed, Alex wasn't just in less pain. There was a spring in Alex's step. There was a lightness of spirit. The brain fog had started to clear. The chronic fatigue was replaced by a much more reliable energy that could be replenished. I remember I got a message one day saying, I can't believe it. I'm walking through the park instead of driving, and I'm humming as I go. Oh my goodness. I can't remember the last time I saw the trees. I just loved that, because it was as if that hum of anxiety had turned into the hum of feeling grounded and calm and knowing what to do when something happened that gave cause for concern, because the context in which it happened had shifted completely. By working on the physical aspect of the stress, Alex felt that the mental and emotional burnout had gone through a process of healing. The words Alex used to me were, there was a feeling of wholeness, of being at home in my own skin. I love hearing that. I think Alex learned that true resilience isn't about being tougher, of not feeling pain or pushing through pain. It's actually about being more subtle and responsive and more fluid and more tuned in to the conversation that's always happening between the being and the body. I've talked about that fascia interface. It's about tuning in with curiosity to which method will help now. What level of physical micro movement, yawning, shaking, little walking, breathing, slowing down, pressing pause. What combination of that recipe do I need? And it may be get up and walk away, change the energy completely, or book a session with that therapist that knows how to ease what's going on. But all of this also accumulates. So instead of having trauma triggered by the tissue, the opposite is triggered. The crystalline knots of things that upset the body become memories of the sparkly place where the star shines. And it's like, oh yeah, that breath, that yawn, that moment. And the body goes, oh, I know how to resolve this. And it starts to build the ability to listen in and tune in, but without focusing on the worries as if the form is a separate thing. Your stress becomes something just, it's not a thought that you have to fix. It becomes an experience that your mind, your awareness, your nervous system, your incredible fascial network, you all goes through together. And it's almost like you've got a team that knows how to unwind an issue in very rapid sequence. It's amazing how quickly a sort of a negative crystallization can bring you down, and a positive crystallization can spark a memory through the whole body of delight. In fact, Alex found that just remembering to hum brought back this feeling of, oh, it's all okay. It's all okay. I can do this. And that stuck knot in Alex's neck isn't a random glitch or a symbol of something to be really worried about. It's a signal. It's that feeling of being overwhelmed that isn't just in your head. It's actually also a physiological state that your body can get stuck in, as if it's trying to defend a position that you might not even realize you're holding in your posture. It's fascinating. And I've spent the last 2.5 decades working with people, seeing these incredible changes. And I wanted you to have an opportunity to hear one particular study as a story of how someone who thought stress was a mental thing and part of their drive, and if only they drove themselves harder, they'd overcome it like a valiant warrior, discovered that it wasn't weakness. It was quite the opposite. It was holding in the body that could be unraveled, undone, restored, replenished, relieved, just through understanding this incredible fascial matrix that I believe is predisposed to support us. And when we ignore it, it sends signals of defense to stop us moving and putting ourselves into deeper problem. I believe it's our ally. And that our whole proprioceptive sense, which is thought to reside more in the right side of the brain, that doesn't have the words, doesn't have the dictionary, but has the poetry and the pauses. When we bring these two aspects together, that the words become less of an issue, and we're more inclined to take a lovely deep yawn or a little like a horse does, and make these little gestures to remind ourselves that our tissue is seeking to help us. So if this story is ringing any bells for you, if you've ever felt that frustrating gap between a mind that wants to be calm and a body that just won't let go, I really invite you to get curious. You don't have to become an expert overnight. You can start small. Just pick one area of your body that you know holds a feeling of being stuck and make one simple, gentle gesture just for that spot. Just put a ball there. It can just be a half-inflated softball or a squash ball or a hand. And try a micro movement. And the breath. Just in through the nose, out through the mouth. And imagine breathing through it and deliberately and conscientiously slowing down. And see if it brings any pictures into your mind. Often it works in images, guiding you that perhaps you need to drink more water or get a little more fresh air. But just notice what you feel without any judgment at all. Just be kind to you. See what happens. You might discover that you have a listening friend deep inside, an innate part of your beingness, while you're here in Earth School, experiencing all the crazy speed that we have to live at. And it's the part of you that loves to slow down, just giving yourself time and space to soothe. If you've ever had an experience of this working, or it led to an emotional shift, share your story in the comments below, because we can all learn so much about these experiences. And if this was helpful, please give us a thumbs up with the video. Don't forget to click subscribe if you haven't already, because there's more where this came from. And do let me know if you appreciate the client stories, because I'm happy to share others, always protecting their names. But just remember that the goal is not to fight your body or to silence its signals. I think the path to real lasting relief from stress isn't about escaping your body in any way. It's about finally, truly coming home to it and listening and tuning in. What if, just what if, the answers you've been searching for might not be in your head, but woven into the very fabric of who you are? God bless.